Hey, it's Shekinah, aka The Purpose Therapist, and we're coming at you with the Stress Free Series, a series dedicated to helping you manage your stress and get to the best version of yourself. Today's conversation is all about boundaries, so let's get started. So first I want to start out by discussing what is a boundary. A boundary is a non-negotiable that you set to protect your time, energy, and overall mental health. Boundaries can look like time management skills. They can look like being able to say no in uncomfortable situations. They can even look like being able to step away from social media, going to go spend some time in your self-care, all those things. And we're going to get into what they can look like for you today and how we figure that out. But the most important part you want to remember is that the boundaries are for you. Yeah, you might be separating yourself from a certain group that's causing you to feel overwhelmed, or you might be not engaging in some activities just because you want to take a break for yourself. You need an extra nap in the day. Whatever those things may be, they are for you. They're so you can show up the best version of yourself, execute your health and wellness goals, and be just 100%, 1000% the best version of you. That's what a boundary is for. That's its definition, or the Purpose Therapist definition of a boundary. There are 4 steps to establishing the perfect boundaries, okay? It's identifying what your boundaries are, communicating them effectively, doing what you say, and then remembering the why. Why are you doing this? What's my true purpose in trying to establish these boundaries? And if you stick to these, you'll be able to execute them flawlessly. And now we're going to break down each one. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, all right, I hear you, I got you, all about the boundaries, let's get it. How do I identify the boundaries though? What are some things I need to do? So these, when you're talking about establishing boundaries, you want to check these areas, okay? So first of all, it's financial, professional, physical, social, emotional, and personal. And I'm going to break each one of those down. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So first of all, financial. This is probably the stressor for everyone. This is the area of opportunity. This is why I need to set some boundaries around my budget. I need to set some boundaries around financial planning. I need to set some boundaries by not letting people borrow stuff. See what I'm saying? Making sure that I'm identifying those pain points in my financial journey and how those things are impacting me, and what boundaries can I set in that place to help me manage that, right? So that's the first part, financial. Then we get on to professional. Now, professional is the one that gets a lot of us too. When we're talking about the workplace, that's probably our highest form of stress. So what are some things that we can start to do to help us manage our professional experience? What does that look like? Okay, so you might be asking yourself, all right, I hear you, I got you, all about the boundaries, let's get it. How do I identify these boundaries though? What are some things I need to do? So these, when you're talking about establishing boundaries, you want to check these areas, okay? So first of all, so again, what does that look like? Professional boundaries can be anything from leaving work at work and not taking it home with us. That can be anything like making sure that when I say that I'm going to do a certain thing in the time frame, I set a schedule for myself before the work week. That can be making sure that I make room for taking my lunch, having some time or people in the workplace that allow me to talk or vent about things that I'm experiencing at work. Creating boundaries around the assignments that I'm taking on. If I don't have room, I just don't have room. Making sure that I have a consistent self-care plan around before and after work. Making sure that I'm not doing anything to subject myself to things like imposter syndrome, or subject myself to things like feeling like I'm not worthy of doing that job, or that I'm not doing a good job. Consistently affirming ourselves. What are the boundaries that we need to set to make sure that our professional life is not one that's overwhelming for us? What does that look like? Okay. Yeah. Now we're on to the physical aspect of making sure that we identify our boundaries in that space. So this is when you're really looking at what some of your physical goals may be, or what are some things that you feel like you need to just adjust, areas of opportunity. Is it you making boundaries around you going back to the gym? Is it you making boundaries around your nutrition? Having conversations about your primary physician about what some of your experiences may be. Monitoring certain health concerns that you might have. What are the boundaries that you need to start to set to help manage those stressful spaces? What are the pain points when it relates to your physical experience? And so when we start to identify those things, we can start to put in place different boundaries, okay? And then once we establish those boundaries, we can come up with some definite routines and consistency around what our goals are, and knocking them out one by one when it comes to that physical aspect of our experience, when it comes to boundaries and when it comes to stress management. So when we're talking about social boundaries, those are probably one of the most important, because what happens sometimes is when we don't know how to establish boundaries amongst friends, family members, and other social settings, it can end up impacting us in way more ways than we realize. So we'll get into this in another episode of this stress-free series, but I do want to remind you that at the end of the day, Socially, you are in control. You want to be mindful of 4 things, 5 things, really. Your 5 senses, okay? You want to be mindful of those senses because those senses are what are gates to you, okay? So you have your ear gate, eyes, your mouth, what you feel, touch, smell, taste, all that stuff plays a part in how you are impacted socially, right? And you want to make sure when you're establishing boundaries that you're keeping that in line. You're recognizing, like, what is it? How is this space making me feel? How is this person making me feel? What can I do to identify something that needs to change around this? And if these are questions that you never asked yourself about friends and family members, maybe it's time really to do some self-inventory and sit back for a second and really evaluate, how are my relationships right now? What are my feelings towards certain people? Almost like a relationship audit, making sure that what you're putting out is what you're getting back, and whatever boundaries you set in place around that are ones that support those decisions. Next up, we have emotional boundaries. So this is you taking inventory of things that are causing you stress emotionally. What do you think that once you encounter it, much like social, you encounter the situation or you're around it and it puts you in a very low feeling? Or what is something that really has you feeling overwhelmed, can't really keep a handle on it, or feels kind of like something that might be out of your control? These are the things that you want to identify as where you can put some boundaries around them. Are there certain people that just consistently hurt you and you need to start to say no or step away from them? Are there some situations where you're not getting reciprocity, like what you're putting out is not necessarily what you're getting back? Or are there some things that you might need to take a little bit more time to manage or identify, things from your childhood that might be bothering you, or habits that you've had for as long as you can remember? What are some new boundaries that you can start to set in place to identify those things and consistently work towards developing a better version of yourself in that area? What does emotional safety, emotional security, emotional wellness look like for you? And how can you establish that using those boundaries? Last but not least, there's personal boundaries. Personal is everything related to what you do on your day-to-day, your schedule, time management. That is what you set, like goals you might have set for yourself. Like maybe you said you wanted to start meditating, or maybe you're going to take some time to explore the city. Whatever it was that you said that you want to start to do and it's causing you a little bit of stress, that's where boundaries be set. What can I start to do to make sure that I'm managing my time a little bit better, managing my self-care a little bit better, managing myself so that I can take that time really for me? And boundaries in this area can be telling you no, telling yourself no about something, setting up some type of parameter around what you're doing so that you can make sure that you are not dishonoring yourself with any of your actions. And so that's the last one, personal. Last but not least, there's personal boundaries. Personal is everything related to what you do on your day-to-day, your schedule, time management. That is what you set, like goals you might have set for yourself. Like maybe you said you wanted to start meditating, or maybe you're going to take some time to explore the city. Now we're on one of the most important parts of this whole process, communicating your boundaries. People don't know what your needs are unless you tell them, right? And sometimes we can make assumptions that, oh, they should know this, they should know. No, they shouldn't. You have to be able to be in a position to communicate what you need. So what that looks like is being able to, first of all, identify what you're feeling, right? Take time, take inventory with yourself. What am I feeling? What is the stressor in this space? What does it look like? What can I start to do to manage it? Using that list that we just went over, right? So identify what you're feeling. Number 2, let them know how they may be impacting that. So this is like something you would use in your social space and your professional spaces. All that you want to kind of like be able to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling and this is how you're contributing, or this is how I'm interpreting your contribution to how I'm feeling. When you do this specific action, it makes me feel blank, right? And so that helps us establish a boundary a little bit more. Then lastly, you want to make sure that once you communicate that, you give the person grace. Give the person grace to try and make the adjustment. If you don't remember anything else, I want you to remember that you have to do what you say. You're always teaching someone else how to treat you. When it comes to boundaries, that's no exception. You want to make sure that when you say you're not going to do something, or when a situation presents itself and that's something you decide that you're not going to do, stick to your guns. So then other people around you can start to make the adjustment. It's the most important part of this process, is making sure that you do what you say. Last but not least, I want you to remember your why. Why are you doing this? Why are we taking time to establish boundaries? Why are we taking time to manage our stress? And as soon as you remember and grab hold to your why, It'll help you manage this whole entire process. Remember what your healing journey is all about. Remember what your stress management journey is all about, and let that be the motivation to push you forward. Thank you. This is Shekinah, aka the Purpose Therapist, and I'll catch you at the next Stress Free series. Bye.